Alright, this is video number 16 in this series on fixed dose solfège. In this video, we will go through a couple of the first Dandelot exercises with 16th notes in both treble and bass clef, and then we'll move on to some Danhauser exercises. We're actually going to see the first use of an accidental. It's hard to believe that we've gone through 15 videos and haven't seen accidental in any of the examples. But as you could probably tell by now, Danhauser likes to take things very slowly. So we'll see our first use of the note F sharp, modulation into G major, and then we will also see an example with some syncopations which doesn't contain any modulations, and then we'll see a couple examples which have some chromaticism in them. So let's go ahead and get started with the Dandelot exercises that I mentioned. Alright, so number 38 looks like this. He actually gives a tempo of 100 quarters per minute, which I think is a little bit on the fast side, especially if you're going to be sight reading this with me. But we'll take it a little bit slower, and one good way to practice this is now we're grouping the notes basically in fours. So maybe a good way to practice this would be to actually go through and just say a group, to give yourself a beat and say a group. For example, you see the first one here, we could just say sol la si do. The next one would be re mi re do. Next one la si do re, then fa sol la si, etc. And that might be a good way to practice to kind of work it up to speed if you do eventually want to do it at 100 beats per minute. But like I said, we'll take it a little bit slower. I'd like to take it about like this. What I'm going to do is give you two quarter notes, a ready and then we'll come in on sol la si do, okay? So here we go. Ready and sol la si do, re mi re do, la si do re, fa sol la si, mi fa sol fa, re mi fa sol, do si do re, mi fa sol la sol mi, fa sol la si, do re mi re, si do la si, sol la fa sol, mi fa sol la, re do si la, re mi fa sol, do si la sol, sol fa mi re do si do, fa mi re mi, la si do si, fa sol la si, mi fa sol fa, re mi fa mi, re do si do, sol la si do, re mi fa sol, si do re mi fa sol la si, do re, sol la, do re, sol la, do. And if you find you're not able to keep up with that tempo, go ahead and just pause the video and practice them yourself at your own tempo. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. And it looks like this. I'm actually going to take this one even a little bit slower than we took the last one, just because it has more leaps. If you're ambitious, you can eventually do it at 100 beats per minute, like he says. But let's go ahead and take it about like this. Dot, 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 dot. Here we go. Ready and do mi sol la, do si re do mi do la fa, re mi fa sol, mi fa re mi, fa la do la, sol si sol mi re, do la si re mi do re fa, sol si do mi, fa la sol si, re do la sol mi fa mi re, do si sol la si do mi do la sol mi do, si re fa re, si sol la si do mi sol mi do. And let's go ahead and look at a couple of similar examples in bass clef. Number 38 looks like this. We'll go back to the tempo we took for the first one in treble clef, which was about like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Here we go. Ready and sol fa mi re fa, re do si la, sol la si sol, do re mi fa, sol la si do, re sol la si, do re mi fa, sol fa mi re, do si la sol, fa do si la, sol fa mi re, mi do si la, sol fa mi re, do si do re, sol la si do, fa sol la sol, mi fa re mi, fa sol la fa, sol la si sol, do mi re mi fa, sol la si do re mi fa sol la si do re mi fa sol mi fa re do si la sol la si do re mi fa sol. And let's take a look at the next one in bass clef. Looks like this. And we'll take it a bit slower, like I said, about like this. Da 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 da. Here we go. Ready and fa re si sol do mi sol la sol si re fa re mi do la fa re si sol mi re fa la do mi sol la si do mi re si la do si sol re fa mi sol fa la si sol do re si sol la si sol mi re mi do la sol si re fa la sol si re do do mi fa sol si do la fa re mi sol fa re si do la si sol si re fa mi re fa do la fa mi sol fa re do. Alright, if you're able to keep up with me on those, I'm definitely impressed. They won't get much harder than that in treble and bass clef. We're going to soon get to some examples of syllable reading where we'll be switching in between bass and treble clef, and that can be a challenge, but useful for things like score reading. And we'll also get to some examples in some different clefs that we'll start practicing. Alto will be next. But for now, let's get to the first Danhauser exercise in which we'll actually see an accidental, an F sharp, and only one F sharp in the entire exercise. But this exercise sticks out in my mind as one that I remember the most from when I was studying. Let's take a look at it. Looks like this. It's in 3/8, and the tempo is indicated at 120 beats per minute, but I'm going to take it a little bit slower than that, as I think for didactical purposes it would be useful to do so. 120 might be a goal if you practice this one a lot, but we'll go ahead and take it a little bit slower, maybe about 100. And we'll conduct this in a 3 pattern as we have before. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the place where the modulation takes place, or actually the part of this exercise that's in G major. So you can see I've highlighted the 3rd eighth of the 2nd system and all the way up to where the repeat comes. I'm not going to do the repeats in this, by the way. And what I'm going to do is do something I've done before, and that's to use the stop method actually. So I'm going to say stop when we come to the 3rd eighth of the 2nd system and do a warm-up in G major, and then I'm going to give the count 1, 2, and we're going to come in on the 3rd eighth note and resume our performance basically. And then for the 5th system, just after the repeat sign, I'm going to say stop again, and we're going to do a warm-up for the key of C major, and then I'll give us a count of 3, full measure, and we'll come in on the sol and continue the performance from there. But one thing I'd recommend that you do now is, if you feel like you're a little bit uncomfortable with this exercise, reading it with me, sight reading it, go ahead and stop the video and read just the syllables maybe in rhythm, do a syllable reading exercise, or also go ahead and sing through the whole thing in stop method a couple times, putting in grace notes where you feel they might be useful to you. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do this one at a tempo of about 100, which is about like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and warm up to the key of C major. Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. Alright, I'll give you a count of 3 and we'll come in on do. 1, 2, 3. Do, si, do, sol, mi, do, la, 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 sol, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, la, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Stop. G major warm up. Sol, si, re, mi, do, la, fa, sol. Give you 2 beats. 1, 2. Mi, re, si, la, sol, fa, do, si, la, si, re, sol, mi, re, do, si, do, la, re, do, si, la, si, sol, mi, do, la, sol, re, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, sol, do, si, la, si, re, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, sol, do, si, la, si, sol, la, si, re, do, si, la, sol, do, la, si, do, mi, re, do, si, la, re, la, sol. Stop. C major warm up. Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. Give you 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. Sol, la, sol, si, do, re, si, sol, fa. Si, do, re, mi, fa, si, do, sol, fa, mi, re.
do, re, do, si, la, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, do, si, la, sol, si, sol, do, sol, fa, mi, re, do, sol, mi, do, la, sol, fa, sol, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, mi, sol, mi, do, la, sol, fa, sol, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, mi, do, si, do, mi, re, do, si, do, la, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, si, la, sol, re, do.
So that's a pretty difficult one. I'd recommend concentrating on that one for a while. Do the same warm-ups we did, use the stop method, practice the syllables, stick with that one for a little bit. Let's go ahead and look at one that is actually a little bit easier, but that has some syncopations in it. Number 83, it looks like this. You can see I skipped a couple. I definitely recommend that you go back and look at those we skipped. But let's go ahead and take a look at this one, put in some grace notes, only in those places to get the re. Otherwise, it's not so complicated. Danhauser's concentrating here mostly on the syncopations that occur. So let's go ahead and conduct this in a nice 3 pattern at the tempo indicated of 92. Tempo is going to be about like this. 1, 2, 3.
Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do.
Alright, conduct and sing with me. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Sol, do, si, la, si, sol, do, si, la, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, la, sol, 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 do, si, la, si, sol, do, si, la, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, si, do. Do, re, do, si, la, re, do, si, la, sol, re, do, si, la, re, do, si, la, sol, re, do, si, la, sol, re, do, si, la, sol, do, re, do, si, la, sol, re, do, si, la, sol, 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 do, si, la, si, sol, do, si, la, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, la, sol, 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 do, si, la, si, sol, do, si, la, si, sol, mi, re, do, si, la, si, do.
Alright, let's go ahead and look at the very next example, which contains a lot of chromaticism. Looks like this. We're in 4/4 again. Tempo's 96. We'll take it at that tempo. Conduct a 4 pattern as usual. Let's add some grace notes. Just a couple there. The idea of these grace notes is that when you see an F sharp like that, don't tune it to the F, tune it to the G. It's referring to the G basically. It's the leading tone to the G. So we're going to tune it to that and include a little grace note in order to emphasize that. When you're going back down, think of the fa as tuning to the mi as well. And also you can see that I've highlighted in blue part of the, which is basically the B part. This is an ABA form, and the B is all in G major basically. We don't see any Fs until it modulates back to C. At the very end we see an F natural. So we'll go ahead and sing a warm-up, use stop method once we get to that part, and then I'll go ahead and give you a count, or I'll give you a ready and, give you 2 quarter notes, and we'll come in on the re. So we're in the key of C major again. Let's go ahead and warm up to it.
Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do.
Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Tempo's just a hair faster than we just had. It's about like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'll give you a ready and we come in on the mi. Ready and.
Mi, fa sol fa sol fa fa mi, fa sol fa sol fa fa mi, sol fa fa mi, sol fa fa mi, sol la fa mi re, mi fa fa sol fa fa mi, fa fa sol fa mi, sol la si do, sol fa la sol mi fa re do.
Stop. Warm up in G major.
Sol si re mi do la fa sol.
Okay, give you 2 beats. We come in on re. Ready and
Re mi fa sol 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 la sol fa sol la sol fa sol fa sol la sol fa sol fa mi, fa sol fa sol fa fa mi, fa sol fa sol fa fa mi, sol fa fa mi, sol fa fa mi, sol la fa mi re, mi fa fa sol fa fa mi, fa fa sol fa fa mi, sol la si do, sol fa la sol mi fa re do.
All right, pretty monotonous sounding exercise, but definitely useful for tuning the fa. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next example, number 85, which will conclude this video. It has F sharps and C sharps in it as well. Looks like this. We're in 2/4. Tempo is about 80. Let's put in some grace notes. All right, similar thing to last time, basically. You can see actually in the third system that I've got that I'm tuning that fa to the mi, which I mentioned in the last exercise, and that I'm putting in a re grace note before that C sharp as well. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. We're again in the key of C major, but we got lots of chromaticism here.
Do mi sol la fa re si do.
Tempo is about like this. 1, 2, 1, and 2, and. So I'll give you a full measure and we come in on the mi. Ready, and.
Mi fa sol la si do re do re do re do re si do. Mi fa sol la si do re do re do re do re si do do re si do re do re si do re si do re si do re si do sol fa mi sol fa re do si do re si do si do re 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 si do.
Alright, and that's actually going to do it for this video. I hope you practice these exercises on your own, as well as all of the ones that we skipped. Next time we'll get to some more exercises with chromaticism. But as usual, until then, happy sight singing.